Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Wadash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and push this word in truth and in sincerity. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing this word across the four corners of the earth, and to the sincere Aquathium that are listening and learning in silence in these last days. It's your brother Yadai from the DC Church and Lord's Will. This video will be edifying, short, and straight to the point. And I'm going to entitle this video, If We Suffer with Him, We Are Glorified with Him. And that Him that I'm talking about is Yahweh Shai. All right. And one of the main scriptures that come out or that comes to mind is Sirach 2 and 1. When thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Okay. And we know Acts 14 and 22 that we must through much tribulation to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Okay. Now, as you can see, when I go into this topic I'm going into, we understand that suffering is necessary just as Yahweh Shai had to suffer as well. But I'm going to start here in Romans 8 and read verses 16 down to 18. All right. It says, the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Hamashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which should be revealed in us. So the Spirit bearing witness with our spirit is proof that we are of the Lord. Because if your spirit doesn't resonate with the Lord, is a good indicator that you're of the world. Okay. That's why it's more so you walk by fruits of the spirit, but it also shows you what it looks like by walking by fruits of the flesh. Okay. So what does it mean to suffer with Yahweh Shai? Okay. Well, understand the fact that Yahweh Shai was rejected in this world, still is. Okay, continuously as we bring the true names of the Heavenly Father and His Son, His true ways, His true identity, what our identity is, all that's being rejected, mocked, and scoffed at as information is like, what are y'all talking about? Okay, so just as Yahweh Shai was rejected, he was mocked, scoffed at, and crucified. We're going to have to be able to face the same things, the same kind of rejection, the same opposition, the same loss. Okay. And we're going to face these same things that he faced, all because we follow him. All right. Now, I want to get John 15 and go right down to 20. It says, remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. Okay. I'm gonna read the next verse. It says, but all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. If I had not come and spoken unto them, that they had not had sin, but now they have no cloak for their sin. And when we're out there prophesying, telling these people to repent and turn back, and or this certain judgment will come to you, they can't claim that they didn't hear the word of the Lord. Okay, they can't claim that the prophets weren't out there giving them warning to turn back and repent. Okay, now just like I read here, if they persecuted him, they're also going to persecute us as well. So if you consider yourself a true follower, a disciple, then you should be expecting that same kind of experience. Not seek it, not go out and go receive it, but be expecting it. Why? Because we're not of the world. We're of Yahweh Bashmi Yahweh Shai. Okay? And we're going to expect persecution for following him. And that's evidence that we share the same spirit. Okay? Just as he was opposed for speaking the truth, so will we. He taught Paul, and look what Paul went through. I'm going to go to Galatians 4, because this is something that Paul had asked. Galatians 4:16. Am I therefore your enemy because I tell you the truth? So Yahweh Shai, what did he do? He proclaimed the truth and was rejected. Paul proclaimed the truth and was rejected. We proclaim the truth and are rejected. And you can even look at other Israelite camps out there of these people who know they're Israelites and they will still reject us. Okay. So it's the same thing, just like how Yahweh Shai was rejected from his own people, how Paul rejected from his own people as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and get all that later on, but first I want to get a couple points of what it's like to suffer, in this world. Okay. Because when you're living faithfully in a broken world, that's going to involve resisting temptation. It's going to involve choosing obedience over comfort, meaning you're doing what's right over than just trying to be accepted in the world. Okay. And you're standing for truth even when it's unpopular. Because all these things, they're going to bring hardship in the way of an emotional and a relational and a physical standpoint. All right. Now, when you look at the emotional standpoint, that's basically what? Conviction and refinement, and that's going to produce an inner struggle. All right. Now, I want to go ahead and get James 1 and read verses 2 down to 4. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So the trials are going to test and mature your faith. Okay. You're not going to know how strong you are until you're battle tested. And let me get Romans 12. Start from the top. Let me read 1 and 2. I wanted to get just two, but one complements it so much because this is a dedicated service, okay? But Romans 12 and 1, it says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service. That itself is going to bring an inner struggle. That itself is going to bring some kind of relational struggle because then now you're giving your body as a living sacrifice. So you're sacrificing a lot of things that you do in your life to be able to step forward to the ministry. Okay. But now it says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of the Most High. So renewing your mind is going to require resisting worldly patterns. Who you were in the world, you followed a certain conduct. You have to resist that conduct now. Okay. Not all, but most that aren't profitable into this ministry. All right. So that's going to involve cleansing yourself and examining yourself daily. It's going to involve killing the old man daily. It's going to involve by walking by fruits of the spirit daily and examining yourself to see if you're walking by fruits of the spirit. Okay. That's how you renew your mind. All right. Constantly delving into the scriptures, constantly being occupied in prophecy, constantly in seeking on, well, examining your walk and your conduct and say, is this of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai? Okay. Now that's ways that you can experience ways in the emotional because you're going to, when you examine yourself and you're, remember, this word is a double-edged sword. So when you're looking back at yourself and you cutting yourself like that, that's going to cause you to feel a little down. It's not going to feel good. It's going to feel grievous, but it's necessary for your growth. All right. There's also relational pain, that relational suffering that we have to go through as well, because truth, it divides where the hearts resist it. Okay. Now I want to get something real quick. I'm gonna get in John, as we see. Matter of fact, I'm not even gonna get these because I got these earlier. But John 5 and 20, the persecution that we're going to face, the same thing as Yahweh Shai did. Because we're not from the world. 4 and 16. Now we're labeled as enemies because we speak the truth in a world that's full of lies and deceit. Okay, but I'm gonna get one in First Peter 4, and I always like to read this in the NLT. First Peter 4 and 4. It says, of course, your former friends are surprised when you no longer plunge into the flood of wild and destructive things they do. So they slander you. So your so-called day ones, the people you so-called grew up with, not so-called people you grew up with, they now turn against you. And they slander you because you're not doing the things that y'all used to do in the world. Okay? So when they see you acting a little different, they see you not being the same person that they knew when you grew up. Well, yeah, of course, I'm not supposed to be. I'm supposed to change. When you come into the truth, you're not supposed to be the same man you were in the world. Otherwise, you're not allowing the spirit to do its work within you. Okay. You're not allowing yourself to grow. All right. But there's also, again, physical suffering that we even going to face. At this level, there's certain brothers that may not have experienced it that as much. But, when all hell breaks loose, people going to want to put hands on you because this truth is being put out there, man. And it's causing certain spirits to be irate, I would say, so to speak. Okay. But let me get Second Timothy 3, and I'm going to read 12. It says, yea, and all that will live godly in Hamashiach Yahushai shall suffer persecution. Okay. So all those who desire to live godly, walk by fruits of the spirit, who choose life and not death, who's going to walk into ye at the straight gate. Yeah, those are going to be the ones that suffer persecution. Entering at the straight gate is just a path of difficulty. That's why it's a straight. That's why they say when you're going to be put in dire straits, because all hell's going to be broken loose, you know? So when you're put into positions like this, again, all these things that you're suffering are good indicators that you're of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Not because you seek it, but because you suffer for righteousness' sake. You suffer for doing what's right. You suffer for holding fast to your integrity. You suffer for continuing to carrying your cross. Yeah, that's a good indicator that you have Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Okay? Because you're not going to receive a lot of worldly rewards for doing these things. We do this for a spiritual reward. We do this for the crown. We do this for a reward that's not yet seen within the flesh, but through spirit, through faith, and hope that the Lord is going to deliver on his promises. Okay. But a lot of times when people don't see that as a tangible proof, now they get less motivated. They're less inclined to want to do it because they don't see the incentive behind it. Well, they're not visionists. They lack vision, they're not visionary, and they can't see far beyond what's actually being displayed in the world right now. Okay. Now let me get Second Corinthians, and I'm gonna read it straight through, but it's just, just proving the fact that, how Paul physically was hurt for the ministry. Okay. 23 down to 27. It says, are they ministers of Hamashiach? I speak as a fool. I am more and laborious, more abundant, and stripes above measure, and prisons more frequent, and deaths oft. Of the Jews 5 times receive, I 40 stripes save one. Thrice was I beaten with rods. Once was I stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck. A night and a day I have been in the deep, in journeyings often, in perils of waters, and perils of robbers, and perils of my own countrymen. It's the same thing that we experience now from our own people. If anything, it's always from our own people that buck up the most, stiff necked and hard headed, in perils by the heathen, because they're going to step up too. Why? Because this is not the same tune as the world, okay? And they don't want this world to end. They want this thing to thrive, okay? And pearls in the city, and pearls in the wilderness, and pearls in the sea, and pearls among false brethren. That's important because not everybody that claims to be your brother is your brother. You got to prove a friend first, okay? Just like Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai wants us to prove our sincerity. That's the reason why we're chastised. That's the reason why we go through the trials and tribulations. That's because are we going to continue to walk in the faith knowing these things are coming? Because it's easy to walk in the faith when things are going good. Okay, but what about when your back's against the ropes? What about when you're facing death? What about when you're facing things like Job? Can you still walk in your integrity? Okay. So it's a need to prove your sincerity. All right. But it says, in weariness and in painfulness, and watchings often, and hunger and thirst, and fastings often, and cold and nakedness. So no matter what kind of trial that was happening, physically, this is all the things that was happening. We're going to have to face the same things. When this devil puts out this MOTB, when all food and all the resources and things are taken away, and you haven't eaten in a couple of days, can you still hold fast to your integrity? All these things are going to matter. All these things are questions you have to ask yourself to see, okay, look, where am I? Where am I in building up my faith? Okay, where am I in my faith? You know? Isaiah 59:15, yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. Because now you're starting to look different from the typical person that walks around in the world. Why? Because now you're conducting yourself with conversation of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Conversation, conduct, same thing. But you're now walking with integrity. You're now walking with a different pep in your step. You're not walking the same. All right. But it says, and the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. So, because of the actions that are put towards us for walking righteousness, for walking in righteousness' sake, now the Lord is going to put on judgment for these people. Okay. But when we decide to walk in a way that's not, I would say, in alignment with the world, we're making ourselves a prey. And everybody that's in the world that's trying to come down on us, especially at the top, Esau, Edom, he's going to try to come down crashing. What does it say? Devil coming down with coming down with great wrath because he has a short time. Yeah, his season's about to end. Okay, but obedience in this world produces friction and resistance wherever there's sin, pride, and unbelief. And that's going to be within and all around us. Meaning it's going to be an internal battle, internal struggle, and external. Okay. And it's going to be internal because you forget that we're still living in the flesh. So we have to put on immortality even though we're still living in these mortal bodies. Okay. When it comes down to killing off the old man, you're killing yourself, man. You got to die. You got to deny yourself. You're surrendering yourself. You're surrendering your worldly pride and all your selfish desires. You're putting off your own personal desires and goals to prioritize what the Lord has called you to do. Brothers probably thought they want to play football, want to be a rapper, you want to go out there and be an actor. You want to go out there and do something that's going to make you big in the world, but the Lord has called you to do something different. That's the reason why the path that we've walked so far has only gotten us to a certain extent. And then it's like, okay, you got where I need you to be from there. Okay, now it's time to call you over to this ministry. Okay. That's not saying that you can't continue to work on certain things, but the Lord has you in certain positions for a reason. So you're not trying to put these things above what He's calling you to do in the ministry. Okay. Because when you're killing those things, that's also you killing off the old inner self, and it's necessary for you to be able to grow spiritually. So you can't be too caught up in the affairs of the world, entangled with the affairs of this world, and now all of a sudden you can't grow. That's what people that grew up in the thorny grounds. Now you're being choked up with too much stuff, and then you can't focus. Okay, that's why you got to keep your eyes single and focus on Yahweh Basham Yahweh Shai. you know and when you're killing off the old man, enduring your trials with him is what you're doing. Okay, because when we go through pain, loss, and persecution, who do we turn to? We turn to the Lord and trust that He's going to guide us through all these trials. Okay, and He's given us passages. Everything written aforetime is written for our learning. He showed us how to get through it, so we just got to do the same thing. That's why He sent us the comforter, so He can be able to guide us, so He can be able to comfort us through all these trials and tribulations. Okay, now, when I said all this suffering and all these things that we do, again, we don't seek out our suffering. We just happen to go through it, because why? We're serving the Lord, okay? And we're understanding that the suffering with Him is connected to being glorified with Him as well. Remember, this present suffering is temporary, and there's nothing compared to the glory that we're going to receive, okay? So, why is suffering important? Well, I'm going to give you a couple more precepts on it. It helps refine you. Let me get First Peter. Let me get First Peter 6, not First Peter 1, 6 through 7. So I can. But it says, wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, ye are in heaviness through manifold temptations. We are in heaviness. We got a lot of shit going on, man. Again, but what did Sirach 2:1 say? But it says what? That the trial of your faith being much more precious than of gold that perisheth. That's why we're supposed to store up our riches in heaven, not worrying about the things that could rust and be corrupted or stolen, just like it talks about in the book of Matthew. I believe it's 6. All right. But it says, though it be tried with fire, just like Sirach also talks about fire, the trials is meant for refinement. It's to shape you. Okay. But though we're being tried by these things, again, what? It's for our growth. Okay, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahweh Shai. Okay, so our sufferings, it purifies and strengthens our faith in Him. All right, let me get Romans 8. I'm going to read verse 29. It says, for whom did He foreknow? He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. Okay, so conformity. What did I read in Romans 12? Be not conformed by this world, but by renewing your mind through the scriptures. Okay, so what does the suffering do? It shapes us to be like Yahweh Shai. He suffered. Now we're going to suffer, and it's going to shape us to be just like Him. Again, it's a character development. We're not going to just all of a sudden be like that. You have to wake up, you have to go through certain things, but it's only when you go through the negatives that you can truly appreciate the positives. All right, let me go through 2 Corinthians 1 and read verses 8 and 9. For we would not, brethren, have you ignorant of our trouble which came into us at Asia. came to us in Asia that we were pressed out of measure above strength, and so much that we despaired even of life. But we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in the Most High, which raiseth the dead. So suffering teaches us to rely on Yahweh Bash and Yahweh Shai and not of our own selves. And just to get one back in the Old Testament, oldie but goodie, Proverbs 3. Start from 5. Trust in the Lord of all thine heart and lean not into thy own understanding. In all thy ways, and all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. Okay? So when you look at those things, it refines our faith, it forms our character, and it deepens our trust in him. All right? Now let me get a couple more. I'm going to close out. Let me get Hebrews 12. I'm going to read 11 through 13. Highlight this real quick. Now it says, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Okay? So that's why it says daily you got to walk by the fruits of the Spirit. That's how you exercise it, just like you would do a muscle at the gym. If you want to get stronger, you want to progress at certain exercise or certain numbers to be able to be in a certain 1,000 pound club or things like that, you have to consistently work on it, exercise it. Okay? But no chastening is going to feel good, just like that burn when you're lifting. Yeah, they say it feels good, but it's like a bad good. Like, dang, that joint kind of hurt, but it's like a good hurt. You know what I'm saying? That means you're exercising your muscles. It's the same thing here. Discipline doesn't ever feel good, but it develops your character. That's the reason why the Lord chastens us. Why? Because he loves us. And he only chastens those that he seems his sons. Okay? So again, that chastening is another proof that you're part of his, that you're one of his. Okay? 12 says, wherefore lift up the hands which hang down and the feeble knees. You seem weary, you seem like things are getting weak. Okay, well, and make straight your paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. Okay? So again, the refinement, as I mentioned before, the suffering here is due to the Lord disciplining us. Why? To produce righteousness. Okay. You know, the Lord chastens those who are his. Okay. That's love. That's true love. Because just like it talks about a father who doesn't spare the rod for his son. Why? Because he loves him. He's trying to set him on a straight path. Okay. But what? The formation is that it trains and strengthens us. Okay. That's the whole thing right here. And it also restores us. Okay. Not only does it restore us in terms of walking a righteous path, but into who we are. You know, our identity, us understanding that we are the sons of God. We are the children of Israel. Okay. We are his chosen seed. So we're being restored through the law, statutes, and commandments that were given to us by walking a righteous path, by choosing life. Okay? So suffering is not going to be some random pain, but it has its purpose, for training and maturing the faithful ones. Okay? And when you do that and you follow that path, it increases your stability to be able to endure the world. That's why Isaiah 33 and 6 is so important, because then you'll be stabilized in the times. Okay? But I'm going to get one more precept, not time, that's going to share the same sentiment as Romans 8 and 17 that I started off with. But I'm going to read 2 Timothy 2, read verses 12 and 13. Actually, I'm going to read 11 as well. Actually, yeah, let me start from 10. 9. Wherein I suffer trouble as an evildoer, even unto bonds, but the word of God is not bound. Therefore I endure all things for the elect's sake, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in Yahweh Shai with eternal glory. Now, 10 is important because it's also living for your brother, okay? If you believe that the brother working alongside you is also of the elect as well, through the Spirit, through hope, as we call ourselves the hope for the elect, then you're also going to do things to make their job a lot easier too. When everybody's looking out for one another, that thing is going to run well, perfectly, like a well oiled machine, okay? But it says, it is a faithful saying, for if we be dead with him, we shall also live with him. Deny yourself, okay? Continue to pick up your cross, whatever that looks like, whatever trials and tribulations you got to go through, okay? Face the same sufferings that he had to suffer, not the same exact things, but for walking alongside. the same path that he walked. That's why we suffer, for following him. And it says, if we suffer, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. That's the point I want to get right there. Okay. If we believe not, yet he abideth faithful, he cannot deny himself. Because at the end of the day, the Lord isn't going to change just because we are. Okay. But if you're not faithful, if you're not abiding by Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, that's also a good indicator that you're not of the elect. Okay. So again, this shares the same sentiment as Romans 8 and 17, but endurance in this race, we're gonna endurance is gonna result in receiving the crown of life. So we have to continue to carry our cross no matter how hard things get. That's why perseverance matters. Because when you persevere, you're abiding in your faith. No matter the pressure that it brings, that only symbolizes your true loyalty and your faithfulness, you know? And when you're faithful, even in weakness, we're gonna remain consistent in our integrity. Job showed that, and there's been many examples throughout the scriptures. All right. Even Yahweh Shai, when he fasted, that's a form of weakness because you're afflicting yourselves. And that's when he was tested, but he held fast to his integrity. All right. So at the end of the day, we must endure with perseverance, just as Yahweh Shai did. That way it leads us to being glorified with him. So hopefully this lesson was edifying. Again, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rachakwadash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and push this word in truth and sincerity. Till next one, Shalom.